Alright, so now we're going to learn how to factor and solve. So we'll start with problem number 1. If you look, problem number 1 has already been factored for you. There are already two factors there. This is being multiplied by this, right? And so when I have two factors and they're both set equal to 0, then I have to use the zero product property, which states that if I have two factors and they're equal to 0, then one of those factors must be 0. There's also a possibility that both of them are equal to 0. Here's a zero product property right here. Let's say, for instance, a times b equals 0, right? But say they tell us that b equals 5. Well, if b equals 5, then that tells us that a must be 0. So in the zero product property, when we're looking at that, it states if a times b equals 0, then either a or b must be 0, or both of them are going to be 0. In this example, we knew what b equaled, right? But in this example, we don't know what a or b equals, so we assume that both of them are equal to 0. And that's what we'll do here. We don't know what 2x is, and we don't know what x plus 2 is, mainly because we don't know what x is. So we're going to set both of these factors equal to 0. So on one occasion, we'll have 2x equals 0, and in our second occasion, we'll have x plus 2 equals 0. Our first answer is going to yield an x value of 0, because if you divide 2x by 2 and then divide 0 by 2, you get x equals 0. So that's our first answer. Our second answer will yield x equals a negative 2, and that's because we are subtracting 2 from both sides, and we get x equals a negative 2 right here. And so that's our work there. We set both factors equal to 0 and then solve for x. Let's look at number two. Number 2 isn't quite that easy. They haven't factored anything out for us, so we'll have to do that by ourselves. And so I'm looking here. I see a 4 and I see a 16. They share a common factor of 4. So I'm going to take a 4 out. Then I see an x squared and an x. They share a common factor of x. I'm going to take an x out. I'm going to open up my grouping symbol. If I take a 4x out of 4x squared, I have just x left. If I take a 4 out of a negative 16, I have a negative 4 left. But if I take an x out of that x, then I have 1 left. So 4 times 1 is 4. So even if you were to check this with the distributive property, 4x times x is 4x squared. 4x times a negative 4 is a negative 16x. I'm going to set that equal to 0. Using that zero product property again, I can then say that this factor equals 0, or this factor equals 0, or both of them equal 0. So 4x equals 0 would be my first instance, and my second one would be x minus 4 equals 0. So we're at this stage now. If you realize in this problem, they started us off here. In this problem, we had to factor first, and then we could use the zero product property. So if I divide by 4, I get x equals 0. If I add 4 to both sides, I get x equals 4. And those are my two answers for the second one. And I want you to do the rest of those by yourself. All right.